Hey everybody, welcome to episode 179 of Average Guy Opinions. I am your average guy, John Corelli. Hopefully you can hear in the background I am playing one of my favorite pieces of media ever. It is Biz Markie doing a remake of Elton John's Benny and the Jets. I'll turn it up a little bit because it's just hilarious. Biz Markie was reportedly died this morning, but those reports are being disputed. Either way, at the very least, he's in hospice and he will die soon. It just made me smile. I think he made a lot of people smile and made a lot of people happy. I was no expert on his music, but this was something on a. I'm going to turn it down because it's too distracting, because as you know, I cannot do more than one or two things at once. Not even one thing at once sometimes. But Biz Markie is part of the reason I got into rap when I was in high school. He wasn't the actual reason, but he's one of the people that came about my love for hip-hop back in the 80s and 90s. This is why I like rap, and this is why I fell in love with rap, because being born in New York and then being raised in Colorado, I didn't have a lot of access to it. But in the 80s in my high school, you chose a path, right? Everybody liked pop. Pop was amazing in the 80s, as we all know. 40 years later, and they're still playing that wonderful music, whether it's Madonna or Huey Lewis or any of those amazing groups, Madness. I mean, you could just go on naming them. Human League. Just amazing music was made in the 80s, and everybody, like I said, everyone liked pop, but if you want to do something slightly different, at least in my really conservative high school, you went in two directions. You either went metal, which a lot of people did, or you went hip-hop, which a lot of people did not. It was me and like a small group of friends, mostly friends of color. My friend Troy Hunt, one of my best friends, of white. Of course he's white. Did you hear the name? But he went that direction too. And I remember the very first time I heard hip-hop was on an AM station in my car. The station was called KDKO. Some of you in Denver may be familiar with it. It's still around. I don't think they do hip-hop anymore. They did silly ads on TV, and then they got followers like me that helped bring hip-hop into the suburbs. You're welcome. But the very first song I ever heard was in my car. I remember it was driving up Sheridan, on North Sheridan. I was going up that hill, as many of you know, that was north of I-70, and my car stalled. Because it was a stick shift, I was like, oh shit. So luckily, in the middle of the night, turned it around, let it coast down, and then gunned it again, and somehow got it up the hill, because I didn't know how to drive a stick very well, and plus the car was often hurting. But I made it up the hill. But during that whole ordeal, a song on KDKO came on called 30 Days by Run DMC. It was on their first album, so it was like 1984. I think the album came out in 83, but I didn't, and this is when I started like, holy shit, this is my junior year in high school. I think maybe even, yeah, it was probably the end of my junior year in high school, and I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. It's amazing music. And to get to my point, which is, sorry, it's taken a while, these guys were kind of ugly. When I was growing up in the 70s, very few people that weren't gorgeous weren't making music, right? And that still kind of goes with pop today. And I think that's kind of the legacy that hip-hop carries. Like, this is an ugly music, often ugly music, from often an ugly place. Or it's a beautiful music from an ugly place. But this is music from the streets, and that's why I was into it. Look at Flavor Flav. Not a good-looking guy. But Public Enemy is one of my favorite bands, because they were saying truths in their music that white America didn't want to hear. Okay? And so Biz Markie was just goofy. At least that's my one song I really know. I didn't follow him hard. I was also into the New York rap, being born in New York. That was part of what drew me to the music. Like, oh man, these guys are Run DMC, they're from Hollis, Queens. I believe Public Enemy is also from Queens. Beastie Boys from Queens. And Brooklyn and thereabouts. So these are five boroughs, guys. These are New York guys making this crazy music that I just love. So for those of you, I mean, it's kind of funny seeing a middle-aged white man talk about rap history or the roots of rap, but there really was a New York, L.A. clash long before Tupac and Biggie. It was going on, and there was a stylistic difference that New York rap was considered grittier. LA was considered glitzier until NWA came along. But for most of the 80s, until, you know, NWA Straight Outta Compton didn't come out till 89, I believe. So that the LA rap was more like UTFO, bands like that were really fast rappers, and it was impressive what they could do lyrically and just phonetically with their mouths. But they're kind of considered pretty. They were kind of considered not tough. They were not considered street, and that's why I think that. Then that's how that whole New York, LA thing. And then along came NWA and said, "We're just as tough as you guys, and we will rap about the same things that Public Enemy's rapping about." And frankly, they got more of a toehold, I think, earlier than Public Enemy did. I mean, that album went crazy. I think came out the same year that. Oh boy, I can't think of names right now, but it came out the same year Fight the Power did, and I can't think of the album that Fight the Power's on for some reason. I used to be a Public Enemy expert, but like I said, I'm old and I'm white and I forget things. It wasn't Takes Nation Millions to Hold Us Back. It was the one after that. Fear of a Black Planet. Jeez, aptly named. So, yeah, Fear of a Black Planet came out in 1989. So did Straight Outta Compton, I believe. I have to check on that, but those are right around the same time, and that's when it kind of looked like, I mean, Public Enemy did stuff with Big Daddy Kane and did some stuff with Ice Cube, and it looked like, okay, this rivalry's over. And then for some reason, a few years later, we got Tupac and Biggie going. I don't know why, but it's an interesting. I mean, I'm sure there are classes done on this stuff because hip hop has an interesting history. It actually considered to have started in 1973. Yeah, most of you have probably heard of Kool Herc. He was a DJ. And he threw like what is called the first, or known as the first hip hop party, and like I guess he was mixing and scratching, and that stuff had never been done in a party in Brooklyn in 1973. Some people have flyers and claim they were there. It's just one of those parties that went out of control. You know, so no, let's have a couple dozen people over, and I'll show them this new music. And then word on the street got out, and all of a sudden hundreds of people were around this apartment. It sounds crazy and amazing. So that was the birth. So really, hip-hop's nearly 50 years old, even though a lot of people don't give it credit for being that old. I was late on the train, not really, well, I mean, considering most people's background in hip-hop, I'm actually early on that train, considering I was there 10 years after the party. But I really got into it for about 10 solid years, and then, you know, I got old, got into other music, and the 90s hip-hop didn't really appeal to me. But guys like Biz Markie did. And like I said, that's part of what brought not only the bravado and the message, but also the guys, the actual human beings who created this music were often not very good-looking men. These were not marketable men, and that was the beauty of it. You know, I've often talked about comedy, and comedy is often said to be the ultimate meritocracy, right? You get up there, and you got to do well with that mic because it's you, and you got no one else. It's not improv, it's not acting, it's you and your words, and you better not be stealing shit, and you better be original, and you better be funny. Same with rap, right? Eminem somehow made his way through that mess in Detroit to become one of the greatest rappers ever. Guys like Run DMC, they did street battles and won street battles, especially Joseph Simmons. Oh wait, Joseph Simmons? No. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm getting the Simmonses mixed up. Joseph Simmons, yeah, Joseph Simmons was the rapper, and his brother Russell Simmons was the record producer, and that's a big... Maybe I should do a treatise on rap, because I really kind of deviated away from what I wanted to talk about. But Biz Markie, like I said, didn't take up a lot of my time or a lot of my energy, but he did make one of the best songs, and to me, the best remake ever in the history of media. That one, I should start again and play it again, because it's hilarious. Oops. And it's not playing because I can't do technology. There it is. I'll end on that. Maybe talk a little bit while he's singing. I did want to mention this hat. This is one of my favorite things that I haven't been able to wear the last 4 years thanks to MAGA hats. I dare not wear a red hat because not only could what I get from my side, but also what I get from their side when they look close and say, oh, it doesn't say Make America Great Again. There's a black man on there. This black man is Fat Albert, and I should have worn this yesterday when I did my Bill Cosby tribute. But this is one of my favorite hats. I bought in Harlem. I bought it off 125th and Lenox when I was there back in 2002. It even says Fat Albert on the side there, and I just love this hat, and it would seem appropriate for Biz Markie backing up Bill Cosby. And maybe we'll talk more about hip-hop on the next episode, because there's a lot to talk about. All right, thanks, you guys. I know it was babbling, but it always is. Talk soon. Bye.